All right, welcome guys. If you're with us, I'm going to be walking through a buyer's needs analysis. And now this is not going to be one of those rocket science moments to where you're going to be enlightened to all the things in the world that makes life amazing. This is going to be one of those moments to where we really get the opportunity to go more at the high level of this process, right? How do we go through and make our buyer's analysis, our needs analysis, how do we do that in excellence? So today, we're going to start with the very first question out of the gate. If we're going to be doing a buyer's needs analysis, my hope is that you've done pre-qualifications. This is not a pre-qualifications conversation. This is truly this is one of those needs analysis moments first and foremost. And so if I'm going into this conversation, the very first question out of the gate is, where are you going? We need to understand the power behind their answer behind this, right? Where are you going is such a powerful conversation to have because it's giving us insight into what they want out of this move. Okay, I want you to think about it. It is not just the destination. And that's usually what we're looking at. We're only considering the destination when we get into this question. Where are you going? I want to be in ABC town. Okay, cool. Perfect. ABC town. We look at it as a checklist. And the reality is, if I tell you where I'm going, there more than likely is a significant story behind that. And I'm going to use a little bit of my own personal buying experience to give you some insight into some of these moments that we should be thinking about these things at a much higher level. So when Ellen and I went to buy our house that we're living in currently, if you were to have done a needs analysis for me and you would have asked me that question, where are you going? We would have said, we want to be in the 77429 side of Cyprus, closer to our family. Great conversation, great answer, gives any agent sitting at the other side of that table a little bit of insight into what's happening in my world. The reality, though, is that we were very specific in our own brains as to what that looked like. And if I, as an agent, only hear that answer and I think, I got this, I can get you 77429. I can get you close to family, close is all irrelevant things. So here we're good. The reality is that you need to come into that moment and go, what's important to you about that? What makes that important to you? Because then you would have heard Ellen and I craft a conversation about our family. We would have said we want to get closer to family. We want to be in and around the same schools that our cousins are going to. We want to be within like just a few minutes of her mom because her mom does a lot of the babysitting. We would have started unearthing this box of just needs in our life. And so my biggest point that I'm going to make throughout this whole conversation is going to be along the lines of asking that second question or going that second level deeper. A lot of agents will stop at the answer that we were looking for. That answer underneath that next layer is really going to be where the needs are living. You see, we look at it as a checklist of, do I know where they're going? Yes, I can get you in that area. Do I know why you want to get there? Yes, I can get you in that area. And we start to check off all these boxes. And the reality is that there is a little bit deeper of a conversation that can be had. So where are you going? I want to be in 77429. Awesome. What's important about 429 to you? Well, it's going to be closer to family. Oh, man, that's awesome. So y'all want to be closer to family. Is that what I'm understanding? Yeah. What does close mean? Right? Now everything starts to change when we have a conversation because we can figure out all of the unspoken or subconscious moments that they were just holding in their pocket because it's just something personal to them. But it's very important in the process of purchasing the next home. And so just knowing where they're going is a great question, but the anatomy behind that question is to get into another layer underneath that, right? This is a Shrek moment. You know, you peel back the onions about layers. So very first question out of the gate, where are you going? The reason why that is important is that I can get a little bit further into what's happening in their world. Where are you going? Well, I need to be in Cyprus. Well, what's important about Cyprus? The schools. Awesome. So something important about schools. Talk to me about your children. Well, we don't have any children. Oh, so you must be in family planning mode, right? Think about all of the layers that begin to peel back when we ask that second question. Okay. That's the key point to today. What happens when we ask that second question? We begin to pull back all of the layers that helps us be an advocate and a fiduciary, a true fiduciary to our buyer clients. I hope this is making sense. And again, this isn't a rocket science moment. I'm not going to change your life, except for the fact that when we go that second level, it will change everything that you do in your business to be much more attentive to the needs of our clients. A lot of times as agents, we get into the solution mode. And to get into solution mode, you just need a few data checkpoints and then you can just go. We have to open up the box a little bit more and understand where the true nature of all this is. Ellen and I, we ultimately ended up buying a house that I could get to my mother-in-law. We could get to her home in like 3 minutes. Her brother, Ellen's older brother, I could throw a rock and hit his house. And so what we really wanted was just not nearness. It was width. There was a width moment to be there. And that was really important. So then there's a very narrow scope of what neighborhoods are going to satisfy my needs. And so when you as an agent start shifting me into all these other spaces that I actually don't have needs in, well, now you aren't listening to me. You're not a fiduciary. You don't feel like my advocate. But when you understand me because you've asked me the right questions, man, you are now the world's best realtor. Okay. Where are you going? Because there's something important about that piece to the puzzle. Where are you going? Well, I want to move into Bridgeland. Why do you want to move into Bridgeland? I just want a new home, and their Dragonfly Park is really cool. Awesome. What makes the Dragon Park so neat to you? What's intriguing about that? Oh my gosh, I just want a neighborhood that we can walk. I want a neighborhood that we can. They start to fill in all the blanks of some of these internal feelings that they get when they think about the home buying process that are going to come at. They're going to be really important later for you as an agent to keep the process moving forward in the journey. Now, the biggest piece to this puzzle, when we ask a question to somebody, we have to come back and have that little bit of that empathy statement and repeat back what's happening. I want to be X, Y, and Z. Awesome. So what I hear you saying is that it's really important for you in this buying process to make sure X, Y, and Z is going to be at the finish line. Yes. Oh my gosh, Randy. Yeah, you get me. Of course I get you. I just repeated exactly what you said. So there's a moment when we ask the question to get the surface answer so that we can dig a little bit deeper, understand it actually where their needs are. And once we do that, we regurgitate those things to them. And now we sound as if we are their advocate, because guess what? When you care enough to ask the second question, you're becoming a true advocate for them. So it's not just pretending, it's actually coming to fruition that you are an advocate for them. Otherwise, you would just been a transactor for them, helping them get the boxes checked, and you're much more than that. Okay. Second question I'm looking at now. And again, my clout from this is that I closed 138 only buyer, 138 buyer transactions in the 2.5 years that I was in production for real estate. And so this isn't coming from a space to where I haven't practiced this. This is coming from a space that this was how I moved business forward at a high level. In September of 2017, I closed 17 transactions in 1 month. And so this helps me get to the end zone a lot faster and with a lot more purpose for my clients, and they feel like they're connected to the process. Okay. Number 2, how quickly do you need to get there? Again, not a big question, not a big challenge right here. How quickly do you need to get there? We almost always are asking this question because it makes sense. Now, here's the thing. If we ask that second question, we're going to find a little bit more significance. How quickly do you need to get there? Well, we need to get there in the next 3 months. Okay, cool. So now I have a timeline. Usually when we get there in 3 months, we need to start looking right. So we go into the solution mode. We're finding the solution for them versus asking that second question that could be a really important revelation to what's happening in the process. Awesome. I hear you say you need to get there in 3 months. What's happening in 3 months that makes this date so significant? Well, my husband's starting a new job across town, and so we can't get our kids into school until we actually have an address. Otherwise, we're going to have to drive them to their private school, which is an hour and a half away, and my husband can't do it. I've got to be able to do it, and then I've got to be on the other side of town in 2 hours. It's like spaghetti moment. And so when we start to unearth that moment, we're starting to realize that it's more important for them to be able to be there in 3 months, not just so that they can have like the timeline hit for when they want to purchase a home, but because their family scenario is about to go nuts. Again, I'm going to bring in my own personal story, right? So when Ellen and I, if you were going to do a needs analysis for us and you asked me like, well, when do you need to purchase? My answer would have been, well, kind of in the next 10 days, because we've already got this process going and we need it to kind of fit into the goals. And you'd be like, oh crap. What? We never know what's happening And when we ask timeline, we are filtering our own version of what's happening in that timeline. We're filtering our own version of what the urgency is. And yet when we go that second level deeper, we begin to see the bigger picture for why our clients need to move in a specific timeline. So how quickly do you need to get there? Awesome. 2 months. What's significant about that 2 months? 1 year. Awesome. What's significant about that 1 year? 3 years. Awesome. Well, what's significant about that 3 years? So when you're looking at it, there's a lot of opportunities for us to find the significance to the time frame, which is going to open up all of the challenges that are going to hit us, right? We're going to see all the challenges and all of the things that we're going to have to hurdle beyond. When we ask that second level of question, really what we're looking at is finding where their true needs are. And this is going to be me on repeat through the next 10, 15 minutes. When we ask that second level question, we're really getting into that moment of finding where their true needs are. Most of us do a needs analysis by looking at a checklist and going, when do you need to get there? Okay, 2 months. Where are you going? Awesome. 7749. Perfect. What do you need in a house? Those 5 things. Awesome. Check. Sweet. I'm going to set you up on a search and we're just going to go. And then you get stunted when you get into the process and something has gone wrong where you're like, man, this is the perfect home. It's in the time frame you need. It checks all of our boxes. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, what am I missing here? You're missing the story of what their true needs are. And unless we ask those second questions, those second and third level questions, we're really not going to understand that. Here's a beautiful question that happens on that second level within how quickly do you need to get there? Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, I love it. I think I'm on the same page and I understand the significance of the time frame for you. Now, let me ask you this. What happens if we don't get there? Weird question to ask. And a lot of us are afraid of asking questions like this because we're afraid of what the answer is going to be. And it makes us feel like a little bit vulnerable, right? Because we're asking a negative question. There's nothing wrong with this. Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, I love this. This is perfect. I absolutely think we can fit into your needs for this. Now, let me ask you, if something happens and we can't get there in 3 months, what does that mean for you? What happens if we can't get there in 3 months? They're going to start to open up. They're going to have an open dialogue, more than likely of an answer they don't know yet. And so it's going to be a little raw because they haven't thought about that process more than likely. They've thought about what they need to do to get there, but they haven't thought about what happens if we don't. The what happens if we don't question is a really big piece to the puzzle when it comes to leverage and negotiations. And it also comes to be a really important motivator to help move the process along in the journey. Because if I was looking at you and you said, what happens if we don't get there? I don't get my house. I've sold my house. I am now homeless. And so now I don't know where to go. I'm going to have to go move in with our parents. And I don't want to move in with our parents. And so now the swirl starts to happen. So when we look at that, what happens if we don't becomes a motivating factor for both of us. Becomes a motivating factor for them, for their needs, and they keep moving forward in the process. When they find the perfect home and they have a little bit of the bubble guts, they get a little butterflies in their stomach. They don't know if they want to move forward. They don't know if they want to write a contract. You can remind them, it's like, awesome. And I get it. This whole step of the process is obviously going to be a little bit personal for you because you're the ones who are going to be taking this big jump. This is your process. And yet our goal was to make sure we could do it in 3 months, because remember, if we don't get there in 3 months, that crazy spin cycle where you're talking about dropping kids off, that's your new reality. And I want to do everything I can to help you avoid that reality. So what would it look like if we put a contract in and see what's going to happen with this process so that then you can get to 77429 in 3 months, have your connection to your family, have your built-in babysitting, have your kids going to the same school as their cousins, all of those little swirly parts that you got. It's a different conversation than going in and going, you don't want to put in a contract. We just saw 20 homes and this is a perfect home. Why don't you want to put a contract in for this perfect home? There's a lot that goes into us that we believe as agents, the process is simple just to take the next step. For buyers, if you think like a buyer, it is a really strenuous process because I'm about to take on 30-year chain to pay off something that I want to know value is within it. It's going to essentially be my life. I am putting my life on the line for these things. And so when we think about it in those moments, we do look at things a little bit differently and we begin to put the pieces together a lot differently. So I just want you to think about that. When you ask that second level question, what you're really doing is developing a further piece of the story versus just having all the data checkpoints to be able to move. You're not just a solution machine, right? We think we're a solution machine. We're not. We're a relationship machine. And the way we build relationships is to understand that second level of those questions. Okay, where are you going? The second question of where are you going? What's important about that location? You open up those boxes. You repeat it back to them. So now you understand. Now there's a connection of like, you get me. The second question, how quickly do you need to get there? We open up that box. We hear that they need to go in 3 months. The second question, what is significant about that time frame? What happens if we don't get there? And then repeat it back to them. Awesome. So I understand that like this is important. If we don't get there, these are the things that are going to happen. So we're going to be able to move forward in this process, right? The third thing is going to be looking at the top 5, right? There's nothing really important about a top 5. You can have a top 2, top 3, top 1, top whatever it looks like, but there's got to be a roadmap to the property. Most people don't have a roadmap to the property. They just allow buyers to start cycling through these feelings, and then you get a roadmap of feelings. And when you get a roadmap of feelings, I don't know if you've ever had a conversation that's about feelings, but it goes into some weird spaces. The same thing is true with buyers. You will look at 25 homes that don't look at all alike, that are in 20 different price ranges and 20 different zip codes. You've got to be able to help build that roadmap towards where they really want to go. And this is a piece that is a true needs analysis moment that we've traditionally been trained on, okay? So when I'm looking at where do you want to go, or sorry, when I'm looking at the top 5, if you're asking me the top 5 and you're bringing those top 5 things to me, I want to talk about that. And I want to make sure that we're talking about elements that we can get into a home that are significant to the structure of the space, okay? And this is the reason why. If I walk in and somebody's like, well, I need a 3-bedroom home, 3-bedroom house, I'm not going to show you a 2-bedroom house. Structurally, that's going to be a really difficult cost to fix. If you come into a home and somebody says, well, I want to look at only homes that have granite countertops. It's like, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, let me ask you this. If we find the perfect home that fits all the other elements and yet it doesn't have granite, would you be willing to put in an offer for this home knowing that you could possibly come in later and put granite in as the countertops? That's a low cost. That's a low risk to be able to have something, a significant move forward, right? So all the other things. I'm looking highly attentive to the structural things. I need to have 4 bedrooms. Awesome. So talk to me about those bedrooms. What's important about 4 bedrooms? Well, really, we only need 3, but I want 1 to be an office. Oh, perfect. So if we find a home that actually has an office, a 3-bedroom home that has an office, is that something that you would be interested in? Yes, Randy, it would be something I'm interested in. See, I've opened up now our ability to search because a 3-bedroom home that has a significant office would be okay. All right, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, if we find an older home, you know, a lot of these older home floor plans, they don't necessarily have an office, but they'll have a formal living and a formal dining. If we utilize one of those spaces for an office, would that be an option in your search process? Yes, it would. See, when we ask the second level to what their needs are in the needs analysis section, their top 5, we can see a little bit clearer about what they actually need out of a home. So we're opening up and making sure that options are coming forward. If I come to you and I say I need a 4-bedroom home, yet I really just wanted that 4th bedroom as an office, well, there might be a ton of inventory that we didn't get the opportunity to see that could help them in their actual needs being met. We've got to be able to ask those second questions. That's what this conversation is about. The anatomy of a buyer's needs analysis is really the first level question that helps us to understand motivation. The second question that's going to dig into the motivation and help us understand the complete story just a little bit better. You know, we're in a relationship business, and in the relationship economy, story is our currency. And the more we are able to dig out the true full story, the more we're able to be an advocate and a fiduciary for them. We actually get to be the person walking them through the process instead of the guy checking the box, because the guy checking the box will be negotiating his commission. The guy who just is checking boxes to move a process forward will always negotiate his commission because he doesn't understand what's really going into the process. Okay. So again, now structural things, if they're talking about the home, when they start talking about distance, right? Because a lot of people will say distance, I need to be close to X, Y, and Z. Perfect. You need to be close to work. Close to work. And we write that down and we move forward. We need to understand what these things mean to the client. What do you mean when you say close? I had a conversation with a guy that I was coaching one time, and we were playing around with some scripting. And so at one point, he asked, you know what? I want you to do a needs analysis on me and help me understand a couple pieces of this process that in my head I want to lock into place. I was like, cool, perfect. So we got to the distance location, and I said, what's important about this home? He's like, man, I want to be close to work. And I said, awesome. I love that. Close to work. And I went on with the next question. I understood close to work. I also understood where he worked, which was in the city. I just need to get into the proximity of the city. I'm thinking through my filters, proximity. In Houston, I don't know if you know about proximity, but an hour is proximity in Houston. Well, he happened to be in a little small commuter town that he wanted to be in the hub. He said at the end, he goes, you know what you didn't ask me was how close I wanted to be to work, because I want to be walking distance to work. And so if I would have taken him as my client and started showing him homes on the outskirts, even though that felt close, and he trusted me as his real estate agent to get him close, he would have really soon picked up on the fact that I don't get him. I'm not connected to him. He would try to figure out why and not really understand that it really all was coming down to our difference in the conversation of being close. He wanted to be in walking distance. And so there would have been some frustrations there. We avoid the frustrations of the searching process, and we avoid the frustrations of the client's journey. And we avoid a lot of the frustrations when we have open conversations about what the needs are, dig a little bit deeper, right? That second question, bring out the story. And now we understand from more of a true space of direction. I need to be here because of, and here's the list, and I need to do it by then, because, and here's the list, and I need all of these elements in the home, and here's the list. And now we have the complete picture of what perfect looks like for them. And now we do have the ability to move the switches to help the process move forward. Okay. So when we find that we have all the elements there, right? When we've put all of this stuff together, it's that second question that always makes the biggest difference. And so if you want to think about it, there's two questions that are really going to be just kind of important to put in your pocket. First is what is important about that to you? And what does that mean to you? What is important about X, Y, and Z to you? Or what does X, Y, and Z mean to you? Those are two great questions. Write them down and use them. What is important about X, Y, and Z? What does X, Y, and Z mean to you? And those are great questions. Now, notice that I've not yet said why. I haven't asked a why question in any of this. Why questions can tend to be defensive, and you need to use them in motivation moments, and that's okay. But if we're digging out the story and helping build a narrative, if I ask a why question, why starts to get a little bit defensive and can put a ceiling on where we're going to go with the conversation. If I ask a what question, if it's a discovery question, I can tend to be with you in the process. And then you're recognizing that I'm in this with you versus doing this for you or doing this to you. All of us, the whole idea of tribe is a very needed thing in any process, like in our life in general. The hierarchy of needs, to feel connected and to feel safe, is a really important piece to the puzzle. If I go through a process with you, I've created safety in that tribe. If I'm doing the process to you or for you, I don't feel like we're together. And so there's always going to be a safety cord that I can pull. Like I've always got an ejector seat. It's going to be much harder to eject somebody who we're in relationship with versus ejecting somebody who is just checking a list. I want you to think about it. It's easier to eject somebody who checked the list that I gave them and helped me get those 5 things versus the guy who built the story around it. And now I have a relationship with you because of the process, felt much deeper and much more connected. And so now there's some more leverage to have tough conversations. One of the reasons we can't have tough conversations with our clients is that we haven't given the platform for that to happen. We haven't shown care. We haven't shown that we're there with them. We haven't shown that we can help them. And yet we want to be able to hit them in the gut with a really tough question or conversation to help the process move forward. That's always going to be a challenging situation. That's always going to return void. But if you knew that I was with you on the process and I understood you from a high level, if I was an advocate for you in every element, because I knew that second answer, I can have the difficult conversations and you don't feel like you've lost the opportunity to have a relationship with me. We're not going to break up over a challenging day. We're going to keep the process moving forward. And I am still your realtor because at the end of the day, I'm a true advocate and fiduciary, asking you the right questions because I understand what your true needs are. And I'm not just referencing the list going, well, you told me you wanted to be closer. I'm going to say, well, you told me that being closer was important to you for these 4 reasons. What is it about this home that's not getting you the feeling to move forward? Like, man, Rain, that's an easy conversation to have when I have the space to have it. If I don't have those answers, I only can go, well, you said you need to be closer. Why don't you want to buy this house? There's a huge difference in the way that those 2 paths go. The relationship path creates raving fans for life. The other path creates a checklist conversation of a closed transaction that person will go, oh my gosh, my realtor was a terrible experience. Right. And I'm painting a very drastic picture. It doesn't always happen like that. Sometimes it can be in the middle of the road. But how much better would your relationships be if you ask that second level question? All right. The very last thing that I always do in the anatomy, in the buyer's analysis, the needs analysis, is that I go through and I have conversations about the limitations. So if they say our budget is $300,000, I'm going to say, awesome. If we found a home that was a perfect home for $305,000, would you find $5,000 to make sure you could get this home? And they'll go, like, for the perfect home, yes, awesome. What about 310? I want the best price. No, I get it. You want the best price. What if it was 310? Well, I don't know that we could come up with that amount of cash. Awesome. So 305 is our true limit. Is that what you're telling me? It's like, yeah, I guess so. Perfect. So my goal is to get you way under that, and we'll see what we can do. And yet for the perfect home, I hope you know that when we negotiate, we're either going to negotiate for the perfect price or for the perfect home. Usually we're going to land somewhere in the middle. And in the process, I want to know where our limitations are so that you and I can have really good, really tough conversations that you can feel confident in your answer. Because what I would hate, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, is that we get to the point where we're having a pricing conversation and that there is $1,000 difference in what you can and cannot do. And you have all this turmoil of figuring it out. Well, if we know the answer right now, we don't have the turmoil. We get to the point where somebody's negotiating with us and they say they'll never take anything less than 201. Well, we go, awesome. You know what? Thanks, but no thanks. We're going to have to move on and find the next house. We know for a fact that 201 is our limitation. So I really appreciate it. Seller X, Y, and Z, but we'll be moving on. So you can just go ahead and cancel this offer and we'll go find the next house. It gives you a lot of leverage. So when we're looking at this, I am always doing these 4 things. This is it. This is my process. When I sit across from you, I'm going, where are you going? Finding that second answer so I can get the dialogue and the story behind it. I'm going to repeat it back so that you understand that I'm connected to the conversation that you're having. Number 2, how quickly do you need to get there? I'm going to ask you the second question. The reason why I ask you the second question is that I'm digging out and understanding the story. I am going to then make sure I have a little bit of that weird space, right? So I know what's important about it to you, but I'm also going to say what happens if we can't get there in that time frame. Because now I open up a bit bigger of a feeling moment that can help move the journey forward. Third thing I'm going to go is I'm going to find your top 5. And in the process of that top 5, I'm going to open up and figure out what's important about that to you, or what does that mean to you? I'm going to ask for definition. I'm not going to leave anything ambiguous or open to interpretation so that I can be a true advocate for you, a fiduciary for you. And then the last thing, I am going to open up the conversation for the limitations. I want to know where our limits are because that's how we're going to balance the negotiation and how they feel good in the process of the negotiation. Because when it hits their bottom line and they know they can't do it, we've already talked about it. It's not a blindsided moment to where now they've got to feel like, do I become the hero or do I become a chump in this moment? It's like, no, you can feel good about saying no. You know for a fact that you can't go $5,000 more. We've already had that conversation. So would you be okay, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, if I go back to the seller and let them know that that is absolutely not our goal, our process, and so we're going to go ahead and cancel this contract? It gives us leverage because you know what usually happens? The seller goes, okay, fine. I'm not going to nickel and dime them. I'll do what they want. And now we get what we need. We get the best house. We get the perfect moment. When we open up and we have all of these conversations with that second level versus checking a box, we've moved beyond transaction into relationship. We've moved into the space for the fiduciary. We've moved into the space of being an advocate. And now everything, truly everything changes when we have questions that go deeper. And I asked these 4 things. This was it. 138 transactions closed. I want to know where you're going. Second question, I want to know how quickly do you need to get there? 2 questions underneath that to figure out the story behind that. I want to know your top 5 and understand like what's important about or how you define those things. And then I want to talk about your limitations. If I do these things, guaranteed, I'm going to be your buyer's agent for life. Guaranteed. Because we've opened up the relationship conversations. We're not just a checklist at this point. Okay. I hope this makes sense to you. I am doing this on a more of a style of obviously the teaching to you folks. If you have questions about any of this, this is where I'm just going to open it up for some private conversations. You're welcome to email me or message me in any way. You can get in touch with me and we can open up and have any specific conversations or scripting conversations that you want to have along the lines of these 4 questions. I'll make sure once this hits YouTube that it has those 4 question elements copied into the text of the description so that you can just copy and paste those and put them into practice. So hope you guys got something out of this. I hope it meant something to you. If it does, by all means, I guess this is a moment where I say subscribe to my channel. Although I don't even know if I have like a subscribe button on my channel. It's just a moment for me to give back. And here it is. Y'all are awesome. Thank you so much for everything that you do and keep being amazing. Keep going deeper and getting better in your skill sets so that you can leverage yourself to grow and grow and grow. All right. Go be amazing. Y'all are awesome.